let's talk about this new way of tackling the migrant boat crisis by the new government, the Labour Party. A lot of people saying it just echoes Rwanda, really. It's their version of Rwanda, Salma, and it's not going to work unless it increases in numbers, which is... We don't know whether that will happen and when that might happen.
Look, this is definitely an intention, and it is not similar to Rwanda in that this returns policy was always something that the UK had when we were in the EU. So to explain it to people, there was something called the Dublin II regulations, and that means that when you enter the first safe country, that is where you should stay. And so the UK were always able to send people back to the first safe country in the EU. This is about going back to that. And that's why there is some difficulty around this, because President Macron can have a pilot, he can talk about small numbers, but until the entirety of the EU supports it, actually, it's not necessarily a system that works. Because if the first safe country you came in was Greece, for example, or Italy, and we're returning somebody to France, it means that the French then have to have a deal with those countries to return them back. So it's not as clear-cut
so all
as
this
being
has
made.
got
They haven't rubber-stamped it, have they, the EU?
Yeah.
But I think the thinking is that it's likely to be, because this is about getting people away and out of the channel, as far as the British government is concerned. So if they go back to France, then France would already, under the EU, be wanting to return to the first country, wouldn't it?
Yes, but so the EU are going to be concerned about a bilateral engagement between the French and the Brits, because this usually would be something that you would do with the entirety of the EU. That's not to say he can't... The French president has made a commitment to a pilot.
Yeah.
We are talking about small numbers here. It's 50. It is also in conjunction with an application process for some people in France who can try and apply legally to come here instead of taking that dangerous route, people with family connections and so forth, who have not tried the boat route previously. So there's a lot of things going on in this mechanism, but the critical factor is it going to be enough of a deterrent? The Rwanda scheme was harsher than this.
Well, the problem with the deterrent on the face of it, Caroline, is that the numbers don't... They don't appease people's concerns, do they? You know, we had hundreds yesterday. What is it around? I'm just looking for the figures now, actually. It's around sort of 2,000, 1,800, 2,000 a week, roughly, that were coming over. And we're talking about, if we add up this pilot scheme, 50 people that are going to be sent back. So people think, well, look, for goodness sake, this is just not kind of a deterrent. It's so small. And at the same time, only yesterday, live in front of our cameras and lots of other cameras, a boatload of people going up and down the coast just south of Calais, seemingly picking people up. Not a single French taxi service, not a single French person in sight. And that picture actually is on the front page of the Telegraph, because their cameras were there too. It doesn't feel like much. So why is the government so delighted with it?
Well, first of all, that they've got something practical that's in agreement with the French. We can't solve this without cooperation, particularly with the French. But Sam was absolutely right. This will be an issue, particularly for Greece and Italy, who will feel, does this mean we're going to get returns to us? The truth is, we've got this problem because, actually, Europe doesn't have any borders. So people basically walk through. You land in Greece or you land in Italy, on one of the islands, you get to the mainland, you don't get on a plane, you travel by road across the whole of the EU with no borders.
Now that, of course, is why people wanted Brexit.
Well,
because we didn't, they felt, apart from the physical barrier of the sea, have a border either with the free movement.
Exactly.
But Emmanuel Macron is blaming Brexit for this problem.
So he's right and he's wrong.
OK.
If you can do that. He's right because Boris Johnson failed when we withdrew to get an agreement on returns. So he is right about that. But he's wrong because, actually, we're facing this issue, but lots of other countries are. I think Poland is now reinforcing its border because of this issue.
I mean, but a lot of people will say, and actually a lot of experts say in this, is that this is a problem of our own making because of the lack of safe and legal routes. The Public and Commercials Union, who represent Border Force, now they're the experts. If there was a problem in the NHS We will go and speak to the doctors. How do we fix this problem? The people who work in border force have said, and their unions are saying, that we need safe and legal routes. They have said, in fact, they've gone even a step further, said we need a scheme like the Ukrainian scheme. This Labour government, I remember interviewing this Labour government, Yvette Cooper, when she was Shadow Home, on this show. They were the biggest champions of safe and legal routes. Why are we not talking about that?
Of course there should be safe and legal routes, but safe and legal routes for people who actually we feel have got a legitimate claim.
But we don't have any. If you're in Afghanistan at the moment, you can't go in, you can't apply.
But it's not one without the other, is it, Adil? Because basically we can have safe and... Hang on. We can have safe... You've asked the question. We can have safe and legal routes, and I think there should be more of that. I think we should work with the UN and others in those refugee camps from Syrians who fled, from Afghans who fled. But what we have got, and it's rising every day, and if you think about the numbers, 50 a week, that's a start. We don't know. I think the idea is it should build up, but we don't know where it's going to build up to. 50 a week being sent back to France, but we've got something like 250 a day arriving. So it is literally a drop in the channel, if you like, in terms of solving this. And what we do know is also lots of those people... You know, I've listened to people being interviewed, and they're very honest about it. They're coming because they think they're going to have a better life. They think our system of welfare and access to housing is much more generous than other countries. That will be debatable. But if that is their perception and they think they can get in, and if they even don't get asylum, they disappear within our country because we've got no ID cards, we've got no digital ID to identify people. So even if they're returned, they can come back and we haven't got the ID. So the union can say this, but there are plenty of other people as well who've run border security who say this is a massive problem and who might say, Adil, that the French haven't done enough whilst they stand on the beaches and watch people.
I mean, some will say people feel that. We pay them a lot of money for that service.
I mean, some will say there's no doubt they want a better life because they're coming from, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. Maybe some will come from Palestine, where their countries have been obliterated by wars that we've been part of. So we are responsible for what's happening around the world.
They're mostly men.
And part of... Well, yeah, of course. Well, yes, I suppose men will think, well, I'm not going to risk my mother or my sister or my daughters coming on the boat. I'm going to go there first. My father came here and then brought his family over. Yeah, but that's what men generally do. They go and they'll provide and they'll say, now you come along. So that generally does happen a lot in immigration. That is, whether it's legal or illegal,
but you don't support... But, I mean, basically, safe routes, we're agreed on that.
Yeah, I think it's not with me, it's what other people are saying, experts. Zoe Gardner on this show, she's an independent expert in immigration. She's saying it. The border force union are saying... But
safe routes won't necessarily resolve it for the men, mostly men, in their thousands, who are coming every single day on boats.
Why wouldn't it?
Because they probably wouldn't be... They probably might not meet the criteria for leaving.
OK. Look, the other issue about this
is that the problem, then? Is that the problem that with this, let's look at the new thing, this pilot scheme. There's going to be somebody will be allowed in, maybe a man, because Adil argues they generally come first. They will be allowed in if they haven't tried to cross illegally through a safe route, and in return, the French will take somebody back. You can see the maths on that, can't you? But is the stumbling block going to be there's far more that the government wants to return than will meet the criteria to come in?
Yes, potentially. The other difficulty on the French side is that you have to have a family connection in the UK in order to be, in order to apply for the safe and legal route. So yes, there is potentially a problem with the maths, but we don't know that until we actually see the numbers.
Get it approved and see it now.
I mean, the other worrying thing about this is what a lot of people will say is the dehumanisation of what we create with migrants, and therefore it is a surprise these horrific and awful scenes we've seen last night in Northern Ireland. Just to bring people up to speed, that for the 12th of July event, this is a parading calendar of Protestant loyal orders. There'll be a number of bonfires that take place across Northern Ireland around this week, and a lot of them pass without incident, but some of them can be often controversial where they sort of attach protest to it. And this one is
their effigies they choose.
Exactly, and this is a bonfire with an effigy of a migrant boat with migrants being set alight last night. You know, if this happened, and you see, these are extremists, we would be asking a question: who radicalised these people? Who are sending the messages out that makes these people think this is OK to do? We will be asking those serious questions. So the question is, who's radicalising these guys? Who gives them the permission or thinks that it's OK for them to do that?
I mean, just to explain what the image showed, I don't think people are necessarily clear of what the image was. The line underneath about, before you answer that, sorry, if you could just pop it back up again. The line underneath veterans before is because these people are protesting about a separate issue to do with veteran members of the police force in Northern Ireland, maybe retrospectively being judged and saying preferences being given to immigrants over that. I only want to mention that just so that people understand the image, but the question is still valid, you know, if you want to ask it.
This is really terrible scenes we're seeing, which will be projected all around the world. This is not, and this is not great. But we do have to ask, well, where are they getting this sort of the authority to feel that they can do this?
Well, first of all, to say it's unacceptable. This sort of inflaming of the situation, actually, is awful. And actually, the authorities should tackle it. The police in Northern Ireland, they should tackle it. Let's just if it was happening here in London or happening in Doncaster or anywhere else, they should tackle it. And it reminds us, of course, of what happened after the Southport murders and the attacks on hotels where asylum seekers were being housed. It's being radicalised because I think partly that social media over the last 10 to 15 years has enabled groups, polarised groups on the right and the left, to use that as a vehicle to organise. I think that is one of the things that has changed as well. It's become a loud hailer for people to do that. But I think also, whilst saying this is unacceptable, this goes to those people who would never do that in a million years, but who are concerned about our border control and how it works. And so behind this, that's unacceptable, but that's why we have to tackle some of these issues in a fair and reasonable way to say,
that is not the way to show your concern.
Of course it is. Of course it isn't. But there are probably people watching this show this morning who would absolutely 100% be against that, but then would come out and say, but we're giving them this ammunition because we're not dealing with an issue. You said about the Ukrainian safe routes. We had it for people from Hong Kong as well. We can do this. We can do it better, and we can look into Syria and Afghanistan. We can look into other places around the world where we can work with the United Nations and others who will check documentation in those refugee camps to assist not just us but other countries in the West to play our part. But at the moment, we're also dealing with a situation where it doesn't seem that any government can resolve this on their own, but also to look at what's pulling people here, but also what's fair to those people. What about those people who legally come into this country or legally find a way to claim asylum? They're in a logjam of people who can't get their applications heard.
Sorry, you mentioned, you know, the people that are here, and you also mentioned before the pull, both of you have, Summer, the pull to coming here. Is sort of related but slightly different take on it. Kemi Badenoch is calling for foreign nationals to be barred from claiming disability and sickness benefits. Now, coming here to have benefits of our welfare system, our NHS, is one of the things that is often cited as a reason to come to our country. We should be proud of our welfare state and our sickness benefits. But is this a useful thing to call for all foreign nationals, presumably those that come here illegally and legally? How would it work? And because I think a lot of people might think that sounds fair. That sounds fair that they can't claim welfare.
Yeah, so over the last sort of decade or so, there has been a reduction of the benefits that are offered to both legal, certainly in terms of asylum seekers, which is what Kemi Badenoch is talking about. There are huge restrictions on what they can do, and this is a further step in terms of being able to claim benefits. You pay an immigration surcharge if you come in legally for the use of the NHS because of the pressure that is going to be put on there. So I think that there has been a lot of support for that type of policy. And people will sort of wonder, if you have been granted settled status as an asylum seeker, should you immediately have access to those rights and those benefits if you haven't paid into the system, knowing that actually there is still accommodation costs and other costs that are met by the government.
Yeah, particularly as, of course, changes to the welfare benefit for those that have lived and paid all their life has been the source of headlines and concern. Should we get Dr. Amir Khan's perspective on this?
We always
like his perspective on everything. You're in West Yorkshire for us this morning, of course, where you work. We've got so much to talk to you about, David, but shall we start with this? So a proposal that foreign nationals be barred from claiming disability and sickness long-term benefits. Where does that stand with you at the coalface?
Morning. So where I work, we see a variety of people from different backgrounds, and I have patients who are foreign nationals and who have come through legal routes when it comes to immigration and even refugee status. And what I can tell you is that I really empathise with them, when they come and they tell me their stories of trauma, of war, of conflict, of the mental health and physical issues that they have all been through as a result of things that we can barely imagine living here in the UK. It's really hard for me then to say, well, you're not allowed to have this and you're not allowed to have that because you're not from here. As a doctor, as a healthcare professional, any person who comes through my door gets treated exactly the same. I do not make any judgments. And I think that's absolutely right. And it's how we're trained to treat patients regardless of where they're from. So if these things do come into force, it would be really difficult for us as healthcare professionals to treat different people in different ways. And that is not something I'm supportive of or would like to do as a GP who sees patients from all walks of life.
OK. Amir, can we also ask you about the Times report this morning as well? They're saying that GPs, such as yourself, will be told to stop issuing millions of sick notes that sign people off work and instead send them to the gym or to job coaches. What's the honest truth here from your experience? Do you come across people that you think, actually, you know what, they probably can and should go back to work, and actually we should be encouraging people to get fit again? You talk a lot about people being fit and looking after themselves. Is there a sort of bit of truth in this, do you think?
There is some truth in it. In any system, there will be people who take advantage of it, and that usually makes up a small number of a much larger number of people who aren't taking advantage of it. In my experience, yes, there are some people who will benefit from encouragement to get back into work and get help from job coaches and gym memberships and social prescribers. Those with mild mental health conditions, perhaps with some back pain as well, where movement is encouraged. But I think when we give out blanket statements like this, or we read these articles in papers, what it risks is healthy people essentially pointing the finger at a group of very vulnerable, very unwell people and saying, well, you're the reason there's a lot of issues in the country. You're the reason the economy is coming under pressure as well. And that is just not true. I promise you, Adil, I see patients again, from all walks of life who would do anything to be out of pain, who would do anything to not have their mental health issues or their physical health issues, and would love to be healthy like you and I, and be able to wake up each morning, to be able to move freely, think freely, all of those things that we often take for granted as people who are not unwell. And the benefit service is there for them to help them live a dignified life. And so, yes, in answer to your question, a small number of people may take advantage of it, and those people may benefit from this scheme. But I think that there's a much bigger picture here, looking at the cause of illness in a holistic way and targeting that and getting people to be healthier and not think of them as productive kind of units. I think we're talking about human beings here, not productive units that are only alive to contribute to the economy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure everything you're saying is true. Out of interest, are you in one of the 15 regions that the Health Secretary Wes Streeting is thinking of trialling this? Because I guess the extra focus on it as part of a overhaul of the welfare system is that GP surgeries in these areas will be given specialist funding so they can support patients rather than sort of perhaps just writing another sick note, the implication is. I heard you in the news with Charlotte saying that, it's not the job of GPs to be finding people work and jobs. But then I guess whose job is it? Because maybe you have a greater understanding of some of those conditions and how it might support them. I wonder.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that as GPs, we do have these conversations already with patients. When a patient comes in to see me, and this only happened yesterday, with a certain health condition, perhaps back pain or sciatica, I will talk to them about what kind of works that may not exacerbate their symptoms and how we can get them back into work. But my main focus in a consultation is making them feel better and making them feel heard and seen and getting them out of pain. That is my main focus. My main focus isn't getting them productive back into the economy again. That is a happy side effect of the first part of the consultation I'm focused on. And what I would say, I don't know if Bradford is part of this scheme. I've seen the list of some of the cities. Bradford wasn't on the list that I've seen, but that was a very short summarised list. But we do already have access to things like gym memberships and social prescribers. And there is a work well scheme that we have access to as well. How accessible these things are for patients, because often when I refer people to physiotherapy, there's a long wait. Social prescribers, much better, easier wait times there. But as I always say, as a doctor, empathy and compassion are my main drivers. This is why I'm in the job. And if I think that going back to work part-time or reduced hours or supported work is useful and would benefit their health, again, that is my main driver, then I will certainly have that conversation. Okay. This idea that GPs are just writing people off sick for no reason at all isn't my experience of 20 years of being as a doctor.
I mean, we're running out of time, so I want to get your very, very quick response to this. This is Wes Streeting now, who said that resident doctors' pay has risen by nearly 29% over the last 3 years. People watching will go, that is a big increase. And of course, everyone would want more. But do you not think that is now a fair deal and the doctors should settle at that?
I think junior doctors are really struggling. I don't know whether that increase really equates to a real-time pay increase in terms of the cost of living and inflation, and that is the issue here. So I think there needs to be more conversation between doctors and the government and to come up with a settlement that works for both of them. So I don't think that is the right figure just yet.
Makes sense.
OK, Amir, thanks very much.
Amir, I'm going to have one word with you at the end, but let's go back to our panel here. Let's go back to you two, because I'm sure you've got views on that. Particularly in terms of making doctors sort of employees. But I also want to get in something about the hosepipe ban. Can you do a quick
Yorkshire.
response?
You're going to Yorkshire.
So you're there in the first hosepipe ban. I think it's also parts of Derbyshire and Lincolnshire as well. Is this the beginning of us all going to have quick showers and everything for the rest of the summer?
Well, I mean, it is an issue, isn't it, water and how we use it? Apparently, I was just checking, when you brush your teeth, if you when you put your water on your tooth, put toothpaste on, turn the tap off, you save 9 litres of water.
Wow. Every time?
A minute.
Wow.
9 litres a minute we use in a shower. So I'm not going to advocate us all sharing showers, sharing baths. That's up to everyone's own personal choices.
That's a different show.
That's a Friday morning.
But actually, we use it, we do, and obviously I live in Yorkshire. We were sort of notified a few days ago that this was happening today.
We can now cut to Caroline's house and see her sprinklers in the front garden.
I have no sprinklers, I can tell you. I have water butts.
Water butts.
Water butts are very good.
3 water butts, which, are out there to basically fill up from the rain as and when we need to use it. So it is an issue, and we're going to have to adapt because as other countries in the world who are used to a much hotter climate.
You know what we're going to report.
You
know what we're going to be talking about next week is people dobbing each other who's using hose pipes in Yorkshire.
I know.
That's going to be the next one. People.
There'll be a drone. There'll be a drone over my house or something going on.
Can I just say on this? I used to really love a long shower, and then hosepipe bans.
Was it Laura? Was it Laura nobbling you in the corridor?
But
she does that.
A shower timer is the thing to do. You can time yourself, twist it.
How long in the shower?
Egg timer. Just get an egg timer.
It's like an egg timer. 2 minutes in the shower. You can really get it pat down.
Well, I heard the latest thing to stay cool during the heat wave, which we're now officially in, is to get rid of all your rugs. Apparently, if you pack up your rugs in your house, that holds a lot of heat. And I just want to go back to Dr. Amir, because we're on week 2 now of the rug on your top lip. Are you finding it very hot in the heat wave, or are you going to shave it off?
You know what? It hides my sweaty lip, I think, Kate, when I'm on
You're sticking with it.